Hey guys, welcome to the weekly question video. Before we get started, I want to invite you to like this video, subscribe if you're not already, leave a comment, let me know what you think about this topic, or leave me a question to answer in a future video. Either of those is great. And if you want to support what we're doing, help us continue to do it, while also getting access to all of our bonus content, a link to our Patreon is down below. So definitely check it out if you're interested. In this week's question video, I want to answer the question of why are we redoing our systems and structures yet again? Coda and I have recently sat down and talked through our relationship, where we are, where we want to go, what are the barriers that we are facing to get to the next level of our goals. And in that process, we completely, not restructured, but kind of refined how we are approaching our structures and how we are approaching some of our systems. And you may be asking yourself, like, why? Why is that necessary? And why is that something that you are still continuing to do 5 years later? All I can say is that when Coda and I first started domestic discipline, we really did do our best to kind of learn what we needed to learn, but no one was producing information out there that really resonated with us. So we were trying to find our way to what domestic discipline looked like in our relationship for us, kind of by ourselves. And so we have gone through this evolution in our relationship where we didn't know really anything about what we were doing to kind of knowing, to where now I feel like we're in this place where Coda has grown in his leadership, in his confidence. He has become more consistent, and that in turn has helped me grow in my submission. It's helped me grow in my ability to lean into his leadership. It's helped me become better at yielding to his authority because he is taking ownership of his authority. And so because of all of that, because there is this like growth and there's this like progression and evolution of how our relationship has progressed, we obviously have to continue to adapt our systems and adapt how we're doing things in order to not stagnate in that growth. Because, you know, if we don't raise the standards, if we don't refine how we're doing things, then we're going to end up just stagnating and not getting beyond where we are right now. Coda and I are very much of the mindset that if you're going to do something, you need to do it to your fullest ability, and good enough really just is not good enough. That's just who we are as people. If we're going to do something, we're going to do it with our best effort and to our best ability. And so when we first started, if we would have come in at the point where we are right now, I don't know if we would have been successful. We had to go through what we went through then to get to where we are now. So we had to kind of go through figuring it out and seeing what worked and what didn't work, and having like that first layer of systems and structures. And once that became easy, once that became habit, once that became a structure that was working well, then it was time to go to the next level. Figure out what is the next step? What are the next things to help us become closer to our long-term goal? Coda and I never really sat down in the beginning. I think we were like 3 years into our domestic discipline before we created long-term goals for our relationship. But once we sat down, we figured out what our long-term goals were. We figured out how we wanted our relationship to look. We figured out the emotional exchange that we wanted to have. We figured out, what did we want from domestic discipline, and how do we want domestic discipline to shape how we function as a couple. So we are always thinking with that end goal in mind. We are always thinking about, okay, what is our goal, and is what we're doing right now helping us get closer to that goal? And so as we sat down this week, we were looking at where we are and some of the things that we have kind of allowed to happen in our own complacency. and it wasn't intentional, definitely not intentional, and it wasn't even necessarily something that we recognized until we took a step back and really evaluated. But Coda had let some consistency slip. I had become very complacent in some of my habits and rules and routines. We had the main things down, the real relationship devastating things. Those were completely intact. Respect was intact, direct obedience was intact, all the things. We were functioning well as a couple, but it was really just those smaller habits that I was kind of just letting slide, and it was starting to creep into my attitude towards some other things. So before it became a big problem, before that complacency and that attitude of just kind of not living under the authority of my head of household completely, before that started to really creep its way into the bigger things and really start to create a lot of relationship breakdown, Coda decided that we needed to restructure and recommit ourselves to the process that we are going through by using domestic discipline. And Coda did recognize that consistency had become an issue for him. And again, it's not because he was being lazy. It was because he was very, very busy the last, several months trying to, do all the things that he does. And he decided that that was no longer going to be an excuse, that he was committing himself to our relationship and committing himself to the role of head of household in a way that just will not allow for a lack of consistency anymore. And so because of all of that, we made a commitment not only to ourselves but to each other that this is going to be a transition period into a deeper level of domestic discipline, a deeper level of submission for me, a higher level of authority for him. And we don't just want to fix where we are, we actually want to grow through this. And so we restructured. I wouldn't even say restructured, we refined the structures that we already had in place, because the structures, the rules, the systems, they were not bad. They just needed to be refined, and we needed to recommit to actually following through with them. And so that's what we sat down and did. So the process that we went through with all of this is that we sat down, we went through our rules. We looked at all of our rules very meticulously. Coda decided if any of our rules needed to change. I do think that he took out maybe like 3 of our rules where he thought that they were either redundant because they were, reiterated in a couple different places. So he kind of combined all of those redundancies into one statement. And so he took out a few things, nothing really changed, and then he added some rules. And so we went through, we did all of that. We also went through our punishment structure to where we were doing like just corrections and punishments. And now there's 4 options of, potential consequences with spanking. There's 4 different spanking options that Coda can pull from. And we're going to do a main podcast going through all of our, through our new punishment structure. So I don't want to get into it too deep here. But when we went through all of our rules, Coda assigned a consequence to each rule as a base level consequence. So that does not mean that that is always the consequence, but that is the least severe consequence that rule can have, if that makes sense. So if something is labeled as a correction, it can go up, it can become a punishment if Coda decides that the situation warrants it, but it'll never be less than a correction. If something is labeled as a punishment, it can go up to what we call an extended punishment. Again, that'll be covered in our podcast coming out in a few weeks, but it will never be less than a punishment, but it could go up. And so that is kind of how we structured it, to where Coda can look at the rules, He can look and see what he has preemptively decided as the least severe consequence attached to this rule possible, and then he can evaluate if the situation warrants a more severe consequence than what is listed. That makes his decision making a whole lot easier. It makes his ability to be consistent a whole lot easier. And so he really likes having our rule book and having everything laid out and having this like base level consequence pre-established. So we went through our rules, we set up our new punishment structure, and then the last thing that we've done that I think is really going to help us out is we created kind of a checklist of items to go through during our daily check-ins, and then we've also established a weekly check-in. And so during our daily check-ins, Coda checks in on my daily habits that he wants me doing every day. And it's things like my water intake, my bedtime, my wake up time, just kind of the things that keep me on track throughout the day, that help me be more productive, that help me just thrive in my role. He'll check in, make sure that I am doing those things. And then he always asks me, where's my headspace? What is my attitude? What is my demeanor? Is there anything that I need to talk through? Is there anything that I need to discuss with him? And then during that daily check-in, we have time that if any type of disciplinary action needs to happen, it can happen during that time as well. And so it creates time for discipline and spankings to happen to where it is more likely to be consistent because we don't have to kind of make time. It's already built into our schedule, so that's really helpful. But we've also established a weekly check-in for habits that it makes sense to do kind of a weekly evaluation. I have a checklist of habits that I do every single day. It's just kind of my routines, my daily routines. And it doesn't make sense to have full consequences established for each of those habits because they're smaller things. And so they are evaluated on a weekly basis. And if I miss habits, there's kind of this tiered system to where if I miss a certain number of habits, then I'll get a correction to rectify all of that. Or if I miss more, then it becomes a more severe consequence. And those are things that we talked about. Those are things I'm fully aware of. And my daily routine checklists are very easy tasks. So there really isn't any reason I should be missing any of them. And that's why this system really makes sense for us and is working for us, because it allows for consequences to be in place in a way that feels fair and productive. So that's where we're at with all of that. We're building in consistency. We're being meticulous with our schedules. We are following our systems, our routines, our structures in order to create more success within our relationship. And what this really does is it's helped my mindset be able to kind of let go of control, let go of authority, let go of things that don't belong to me, relinquish that so that Coda can have complete control and complete authority in our relationship. And it's empowered him to have that authority, to exercise that authority, and to be more consistent in his role as well. And so it really has just helped us at this point start to thrive in our roles and thrive in our relationship and get closer to that goal of what we want our relationship to look like. And so I'm really excited about this new journey, this new process that we're on, and I think that it's going to be really, really good for us. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining me. Again, leave me a question or a comment down below, and we will talk to you guys next time.